The devs buffed this weapon so hard that it will destroy anything that it touches, and it is so much fun to use at the same time. The weapon I'm referring to is the Boom Boom, and if you have not heard of the Boom Boom or you have not used it yet, right now is there's no better time to use it because it is an absolute monster that just destroys everything it touches. So before we get into the weapon itself, we have to go over what it does. How does it work? So the Boom Boom inflicts burn, and what is burn? So burn deals 12% PSI intensity as status damage every half a second for 6 seconds up to 5 stacks. The additional damage is blaze element, which cannot crit and it cannot strike weak spots. That is very, very, very important right there. The main thing to take away from this is the 12% PSI intensity. So you want to stack your PSI intensity as much as possible. Status damage, and it ticks for every half second. And here's where it gets even better. Up to 5 stacks, that is going to actually increase with our mod that we have on the weapon and some other factors that we have. And we are going to make this monster into an even bigger monster than it already is. So now getting into the weapon itself, the Boom Boom. So how does it work? So the Boom has an 18% chance to trigger burn on hit, which we'll get back to that. Hitting a target triggers an explosion, dealing 300% PSI intensity as an AoE blaze damage explosion. It does have a cooldown of 2 seconds, and also this explosion will apply 1 stacks of burn to hit enemies. So every 2 seconds, you are pretty much hitting an explosion and you are dealing another stack of burn to the enemy. Additionally, it also has an extra blaze damage of plus 30% extra on top of it, which makes it even better. So for the weapon mod, we are running a flame resonance, okay? And this mod ties into with what we talked about earlier with the normal 5 stacks that we are already getting from the weapon's base effect. So this mod adds in an additional 2 stacks of burn for a total of 7 stacks, which is very, very important and very beneficial for this weapon. You do lose 20% burn duration. However, it is well made up for with the extra 2 stacks of burn that you're getting. As more stacks of burn means more damage. So for the suffix of the mod, we are running a talent suffix for the mod. Now you could run burn, but I'll get to that in just a second. So for this one, we have element damage 8% and status damage 6%, which is what you want on this weapon. You want as much element damage and as much status damage as possible. That is what makes burn, that is what makes all elemental builds or status builds so strong, is status damage and element damage. Because the blaze is element, okay, so now we're increasing that by 8%, and the burn itself is status damage. Okay, so now we're also increasing that by 6%. So those two together, yes, I'll take it. So for the weapon calibration, we are running overflow style. And the reason we're running overflow style is because of the extra ammo that you will be getting after you reload this weapon. So now not only will you be getting extra ammo after you reload the weapon, you will also be getting an additional 10% attack bonus on top of that for that entire magazine that you just now got buffed up. So now not only do you have a beefier mag, you also have a buffed 10% extra damage as well, and we are pairing this with a double elemental substats. So more elemental damage, more attack damage, and more magazine capacity. So for the attachments for the weapon, these are my personal preference, but these are the best ones that you could use for this weapon. The only one that matters the most is this magazine right here. As long as you have the heavy mag on, you should be good. The weapon's recoil is already pretty decent as it is. And for the ammo, you can just use the pink tungsten ammo or the blue tungsten ammo, whatever you can afford at the moment. Both of them are fine. This weapon does so much damage, it's kind of ridiculous. So moving on to our secondary weapon, we are using the D50 Wildfire. We are mainly using it as a marking weapon because it doesn't really have a whole lot of benefit for us. The only benefit it really has is the mod itself, which is the vulnerability amplifier, which will give us an additional 8% of vulnerability against enemies for a total of 16%. As far as the crit damage goes on enemies while hitting bullseye enemies, it doesn't really matter as much with the Boom Boom. But I mean, it's nice to have at least. So for our melee, we're using the long axe. And we use this for all of our builds. All this really does to benefit the Boom Boom is to give that nice 20% damage increase. So you're going to heavy swing the axe, switch back to Boom Boom, 20% damage increase, and then put up a territory mod on the weapon. Will increase the duration by 2 seconds. So instead of 5 seconds, you would now get a 7-second 20% buffed damage increase while using the Boom Boom, which is very beneficial. So for our gear, we are going to be running a 4-piece character set, and the reason we're running a 4-piece character set is because of the 3rd and 4th bonus. So at 3 pieces, you do get deviant energy stacks, and what that does is it boosts your elemental damage up to 20 times, which is 20%, 1% per stack. Okay, and when you reload it, you lose half of those stacks. But when you get to the fourth piece, you get an additional 10 deviant energy stacks. Okay, and you can also get an additional bonus stack if you hit a weak spot on the enemy. So now you have an extra 30% bonus elemental damage, and you are also getting it significantly faster now. For the hammer mod, we are using Deviation Expert, which will give you an extra 10% fire rate and 20% status damage. That's the big part right there, is the 20% status damage. We aren't really focused on the range too much, so losing 25% isn't the biggest deal. The 20% status damage is huge though, and you want all your mods to be talent mods. Okay, so you want as much of that element damage and as much status damage on this weapon as possible. Those two together is what makes the burn damage, and it makes the AoE boom that the boom boom makes, explosion that it makes. It also factors into that blaze damage. For the mass mod, we are using Blaze Amplifier with a burn affix. Every stack of burn grants plus 3% PSI intensity damage. So that also ties in with our weapon mod, how we are boosting our burn stacks by 2. So that's going to be even more PSI intensity added onto our character itself. And then more PSI translate to more damage, because PSI equals status and elemental damage. So you see what we're doing here, right? We're increasing our PSI as much as we can, increasing the status damage, everything as much as we can. But as for the burn affix on the weapon, you can do a talents mod if you don't have a good burn affix on this weapon. I do have a decent one with burn damage 4.8% and blaze damage 4.8%, which are both very good for this weapon. If you get one with a high elemental and a high status roll, though, that as well works just as good, if not better. But as long as you have this mod on and something similar to it, it should be fine. For the gear mod, we are running a blue flame resonance mod. And if you've seen my other videos, I always run blue mods on all my gear. There is a different thing you could run. I'll get to that in a second. But the reason we run this is because of 12% base status damage that you are going to get. And you could also get effects like elemental damage and damage against normal enemies, or damage in general, which could be very, 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 very useful. So another mod you could run for the chest piece could be like quick comeback. I obviously don't want to run a violent suffix on this one, but a good talents one with high elemental or high status damage on it, you could replace the blue mod that we were using. And for this one, because this one's very, very beneficial for things like Leo Labs, where you can just heal yourself and instantly reload. And it could actually potentially be better than the blue mod. It just depends on the rolls that you get for it. But this is the only other mod I would recommend for using this weapon. I wouldn't recommend anything like this for it. It would either be the flame resonance or the quick comeback. For the leg mod, I am using precision charge. And once again, you can go one or two ways with this one depending on what you're doing. But this one gives you, so for every 10% weak spot hit rate, the previous magazine, elemental damage plus 4% up to 24%, lasting for 10 seconds. So if you're unleashing your whole 120 mag on an enemy and you hit all of their weak spots, you can get up to like a max of 24% extra elemental damage, which is great, by the way. But it's on your next reload. So you do have to reload to get this bonus right here, but it does boost your damage pretty significantly. And of course, you want a talent mod for this one. Mine is okay. I got the element part in, but the rest of it's kind of could be better. So another one I recommend, I've been using this one a lot on my status weapons, is Reload Rampage. But after you kill an enemy, refill 2 bullets from reserves. This is actually way more beneficial than it sounds. And you will also get 10% status and weapon damage until next reload. So why it might not sound as high as precision charge, but thanks for Leo Labs, this could be extremely, extremely, extremely useful. So like when you're constantly killing all the enemies and stuff, you could use this. Not only are you getting 10% weapon and status damage, you are also getting 2 bullets back for every single kill, but you do kill a lot of enemies with this weapon very, very, very quickly. For the gloves mods, we are using Flame Resonance, and this one's different. This one gives you status damage plus 20%, which that's what the burn proc is. The burn proc is a status effect. And so the higher your status damage, the higher your burn proc will be. So it's a nice little additional 20% on the weapon itself. And trust me, it very much matters. This very much matters. And of course, the talents mod, I see I got lucky at this one. I got element 8% one, but I did not get so lucky with the other ones, unfortunately. I have a leg mod. We are using covered advance, taking no damage within 4 seconds, grants 20% melee weapon and status damage for 30 seconds. This effect resets when the duration ends. You probably don't need an explanation for this one. This one's pretty simple. This one's just your standard one that you should run. I can't really recommend any other ones personally, but you want this in a talents mod as well. But this would be the best one for you regardless of whatever you run. So for the key item, we are using the barbecue gloves, and the barbecue gloves is kind of what ties it all together and makes it do the huge burn proc that it does. And so what the barbecue gloves does is for every stack of burn that you apply, it will increase the frequency of that burn up to 100%. So now that we're getting 7 stacks of burn, we are also getting an additional damage multiplier on top of those burn stacks, which is why you see the burn increasing so high when we apply it. The barbecue gloves kind of ties it all together and like amplifies the damage. It makes it so much better. And so for the cradle, you're gonna want to run anti-regen, status enhancement, tactical combo, deviation master, sustained suppression. Sorry if I can't pronounce some of these. This one, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it. Heat, yeah. Bounty hunter, and the forces warfare link. Now, if you were running like Leo Lab Solar or something, I could say you could probably take this one off and put this one on if you wanted the extra healing. But other than that, I would highly recommend just running with this. So this is your normal. I mean, this is probably the best one for it. Especially these two. This gives it a huge damage bonus. This one will give you up to 6 stacks of burn damage, which is also huge. So for the food items, you could use canned spicy rabbit dices, which I only really recommend this if you're in the winter server, because getting above 30 degrees in mana base isn't really possible unless you have like one of the portable heater things. I don't really recommend doing. But the other option is the flaming egg tart, which will increase your burn damage by 10%, which will go up actually if you have the advanced kitchen set, which is 30%. And the only difference is it just costs deviated polar peppers, which you just have to grow those. It's not that hard, but that's the only difference between this and this one. Besides the 30% requirement, this one doesn't have a requirement for it. This is very good to use with it, by the way, especially if you have a good chef. And something else you could use for it is the Whimsical drink. Whimsical drink is the best option you could use for this weapon as far as the drink wise goes. For that base 25% status damage bonus, which can be increased actually if you have something like this, Brain Freeze, and if you have something like this with the Advanced Kitchen, not even including the chef. So there's a shit ton of damage that can actually be done with this thing. For our deviation, we are using the Pyro Dino, and we have a pretty decent one. We have a 5/4 Pyro Dino, and basically this is the best deviation you could run for burn builds. Now, if you are running this before the 16th of January, this is very important. They are nerfing the Pyro Dino just a little bit, just tuning him down a little bit because he is kind of overpowered. However, the Boom Boom build will still be extremely strong even without the Pyro. So don't feel like you need to run the Pyro to get the most out of the Boom Boom, because you do not. He is very useful, and he can help like increase your burn damage by a lot, but it's not so significant that you need him at the same time. So my overall thoughts for this weapon is it's very fun to use. It's very good. It's even better than it was the past previous seasons, which I did use this build past previous seasons, and it was very good. It sucks the Pyro Dino is getting a little bit of a nerf. It's not going to be that significant though. He kind of does need it. If you have not seen my Dual Fury or my Pyroclasm build yet, I highly suggest going to watch them, and you will see when the Pyro Dino hits them how much damage the burn does to the dummies. So it's been like that for quite a while actually. But the Boom Boom will still be extremely strong even without the Pyro Dino. And it's because the devs buffed the burn percent, which is already crazy, and then they went on top and buffed the boom proc, like the proc timing and like the proc damage. So now the Boom Boom's doing even more significant damage. If you guys did enjoy the build though, leave a like. It means a lot to me, and I put in a lot of work to these builds, believe it or not. And this was a very fun build to use. And if you guys ever want to see anything else other than just build videos, like comparison videos or what's new, what's going on, you got any questions or anything, just leave a comment below and I'll get to it. You know, I'll make a video for it. I'm always down for that kind of stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed and I will see y'all in the next one.